The night sky burned red as the moon rose over the silver pine clearing. Hundreds of wolves stood in a circle, their faces lit by torches, their eyes full of judgment. At the center stood Lyra, trembling in a torn white dress. Her heart hammered so loudly that she could hardly hear the chanting around her. The air smelled of smoke and betrayal. In front of her stood Alpha Kale, tall and proud, his dark hair catching the firelight. He had once smiled at her, once told her that she was his fated mate. But tonight his golden eyes were cold, like she was nothing. The elder raised his staff. Tonight, under the blood moon, the bond between Alpha Kale and Omega Lyra will be tested before the moon goddess. Lyra's throat tightened. She wanted to believe that this was all a mistake, that Kale would defend her, that he would explain why she could not shift, why the pack bond felt weak inside her. But deep down, she already knew the truth. Kale stepped forward. "There is nothing to test," he said loudly, so everyone could hear. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "This woman is not my mate. She is cursed." A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Some gasped, others whispered eagerly. Lyra shook her head. "Kale, what are you saying?" Her voice cracked. "You said the bond." "I feel nothing," he said sharply. "When the moon called us to each other, I tried to feel the connection. But there is only emptiness. You can't shift, you can't feel the pack, you're wrong, Lyra." A murmur of agreement rose from the wolves behind him. One woman, Kale's beater, smirked, eyes full of cruel delight. The elder frowned. "Alpha Kale, rejection under the blood moon is permanent. Are you sure of your decision?" Kale didn't hesitate. "I, Alpha Kale of the Silver Pine Pack, reject you, Lyra of No House, as my mate. You are unworthy of the pack, unworthy of the goddess's gift." The words hit her like claws across her heart. She stumbled backward, gasping as if she'd been struck. The rejection bond, invisible and cruel, snapped inside her chest. Pain flooded through her body. She fell to her knees, clutching at her chest, unable to breathe. "Kale, please," she whispered. "You don't understand." Enough," he barked. "You shame this pack. You're cursed. You bring misfortune wherever you go. By the Alpha's law, you are banished." The crowd cheered. They actually cheered. Lyra looked around for a familiar face, her sister Ariel, standing near the back, eyes full of guilt but doing nothing. Lyra's heart broke again. Even her own blood had turned away. Two guards grabbed her arms. "You have 1 hour to leave our lands," one said flatly. "If you're seen past dawn, you die." They dragged her toward the border. The crowd shouted insults, broken Omega, moon cursed, waste of a mate. Each word stabbed like ice. At the edge of the forest, the guards shoved her to the ground. One tossed a small bag at her feet, a cloak, a few crumbs of bread, nothing more. "May the shadows take pity on you," one guard muttered. The gates slammed shut behind her. Lyra stared at the endless trees before her. Cold wind bit through the thin cloth of her dress. The blood moon glowed above, painting the world in red. She was alone. Rejected. Banished. Her breath came out in shaky clouds. "The shadows can have me," she whispered bitterly. "There's nothing left." With that, she walked into the forest, her bare feet crunching over fallen leaves, her heart heavy enough to sink the world. The forest of Whispering Woods was a place mothers used to frighten their pups, a forest of spirits and monsters, they said. Lyra didn't care anymore. Monsters couldn't hurt her worse than people already had. For 3 days she wandered through endless trees. Her feet blistered, her lips cracked from thirst. She found a few berries, but they made her sick. When night came, she built a tiny fire with damp twigs. Smoke stung her eyes, and the flames flickered weakly. She wrapped the torn cloak tighter around her shoulders and sat close to the fire, trying to steal warmth from its dying light. Her stomach growled. Her body trembled. She was too tired to move. "Maybe this is how it ends," she whispered. "Maybe the moon goddess finally wants me gone." The fire crackled softly. Wind howled between the trees, carrying strange sounds, whispers, almost words. She glanced around nervously, heart pounding. "Is someone there?" she called. No answer. Only the creak of branches and the sigh of wind. Then, snap, a branch broke somewhere behind her. Lyra froze. Every instinct screamed run, but her body refused to move. She turned slowly. The shadows between the trees seemed thicker, alive. Probably just an animal, she told herself, though her voice trembled. Another sound, paws crunching leaves. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming closer. Her heart raced. "Stay back," she shouted, holding a burning stick like a weapon. From the darkness, a pair of golden eyes appeared low to the ground, glowing faintly. Then another pair. And another. Soon, a dozen eyes surrounded her firelight. "Oh no," she breathed. Wolves. But these were not normal wolves. They were huge, each one larger than any she'd ever seen, their fur so dark it seemed to swallow the light. They stood in silence, their eyes fixed on her. Lyra's hand shook. The burning stick slipped from her fingers, hissing into the dirt. "If you're going to kill me," she whispered, "please make it quick." The largest wolf, its fur streaked with silver scars, stepped forward. It stopped a few feet from her, head low, tail still. It wasn't attacking. Lyra's breath hitched. What are you doing?" The wolf's eyes glowed brighter. Then, to her shock, it lay down between her and the forest, as if guarding her. "What?" she whispered. A second wolf appeared, smaller and paler, and lay down on the other side of the fire. Then another. And another. Within moments, 20 wolves had formed a perfect circle around her campfire, their bodies facing outward, protecting her. Lyra could only stare. Her heart pounded with fear, but something else stirred inside her: warmth. Connection. A feeling she hadn't known since childhood. One of the wolves, the scarred leader, rose again and padded toward her. He stopped just inches away. She could feel his hot breath against her face. Every instinct told her not to move. He lowered his massive head and touched his forehead to hers. A shock rushed through her body, not pain, but energy, alive and humming. Her mind filled with voices, not words exactly, but emotions, curiosity, recognition, belonging. Then a single whisper echoed in her head, deep, ancient, and kind. "Chosen." Lyra gasped and fell back, her eyes wide. "Who said that?" she whispered, clutching her chest. But the wolves said nothing. The leader simply returned to his place beside the fire. Her heart thudded wildly. This can't be real. She watched them for hours, expecting them to vanish, but they didn't. They kept their circle through the night, guarding her from the dark. When she finally drifted into sleep, it was the first time she'd felt safe since she was a child. When morning came, pale sunlight filtered through the trees. Lyra opened her eyes slowly and gasped. The wolves were still there. Some lay sleeping, others watched the forest silently. The leader stretched, shaking frost from his fur, and walked over to her. His golden eyes met hers, calm and intelligent. Lyra hesitated, then whispered, "You stayed?" He tilted his head slightly, almost like he understood. Very slowly, she reached out her hand. "May I?" she murmured. To her surprise, he leaned forward, letting her fingers sink into his thick fur. Heat spread through her palm. His body rumbled with a low, contented sound, almost a purr. "Thank you," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "For not letting me die." A soft voice, or maybe just the echo in her mind, brushed her thoughts again. "Pack." She froze. "Did you just say, pack?" The wolf blinked once, and the meaning filled her chest like light. Her hands trembled. "You can speak to me. Or I can hear you." Another pulse of feeling, calm affirmation. "Yes." Lyra looked around at the other wolves. She could feel them too, small flickers of emotion, curiosity, loyalty, warmth. Somehow, she was connected to them all. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm not cursed," she whispered. "I'm different." For the first time in her life, the word different didn't hurt. The wolves began to move, forming a path through the clearing. The leader, the one she now secretly named Billionaire, gestured with a tilt of his head for her to follow. She hesitated. "You want me to come with you?" "Safe." The word brushed her mind again. Lyra looked back at the cold ashes of her fire, then at the dark forest ahead. She took a shaky breath and nodded. "All right." I'll come. She followed them deeper into the forest. The air grew colder, but she no longer felt alone. The wolves moved with silent grace, their paws barely touching the ground. Occasionally, one would glance back at her, checking if she was keeping up. They led her to a small glade surrounded by ancient stone pillars overgrown with moss. A clear spring bubbled nearby, reflecting the morning light. "This place," Lyra whispered. "It's beautiful." The wolves spread out, resting in a loose circle. Billionaire padded toward the water, dipped his head to drink, then turned to her expectantly. "You want me to drink too?" she asked. Another wave of emotion, yes, trust. Lyra knelt and cupped the cool water in her hands. It tasted pure, almost sweet. Warmth spread through her chest, healing the ache that rejection had left behind. When she looked up, the wolves were watching her with silent approval. Lyra smiled weakly. Maybe the goddess didn't abandon me after all. Shadowmane's golden eyes glowed brighter. A faint, familiar warmth brushed her mind again. Moon sees. Moon chooses. Her breath caught. "The moon goddess sent you?" The wolf didn't answer, but she didn't need words. Deep down, she knew the truth. That night, as darkness fell again, Lyra sat beside a stronger fire, the wolves forming their circle once more. The wind whispered through the trees, and for the first time she wasn't afraid of the shadows. She looked around at the massive, silent forms that had saved her and whispered, "If I'm really chosen, then I'll find out why. I'll learn who I am. I'll protect you like you protected me." Billionaire lifted his head and howled, a low haunting sound that echoed across the forest. One by one, the others joined in until the whole glade vibrated with the sound. Lyra closed her eyes. The howl wrapped around her like a promise that this was only the beginning. The days that followed were like a dream Lyra couldn't wake from. Each morning, sunlight filtered through the treetops, glinting off the dark pelts of the wolves who surrounded her. She had begun to recognize their faces, the large silver-streaked male she called Billionaire, a smaller grey wolf with calm eyes she named Mist, and a russet-colored female who always brought her herbs and flowers, whom she decided to call Fawn. They treated her not like a stranger but like one of their own. They hunted and brought her food. They slept close enough to keep her warm through the freezing nights. When she tripped, one of them would nudge her up again. But it wasn't just kindness. There was understanding, something silent but powerful flowing between them, a bond beyond words. When she closed her eyes, she could feel their presence in her mind, like distant voices humming a song she almost knew the words to. It frightened her at first, that strange connection. But the more she listened, the more it felt right. Familiar. On the fourth night, as fireflies blinked above the spring, Lyra sat beside the fire, staring into the flames. Billionaire was awake beside her, his golden eyes glowing faintly. She whispered, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of burning wood. Then, soft as a sigh, a thought brushed her mind again. "We know. You are Moon's echo." Lyra blinked. Moon's echo. The wolf tilted his head slightly, his gaze ancient, patient. Born of light and dark. Bridge between pack and shadow. You wake what was sleeping. Her throat tightened. You think I'm some kind of chosen one? You must be mistaken. The wolves around the clearing stirred slightly, as if responding to her disbelief. Fawn gave a soft, rumbling growl, not anger, but correction. Not mistaken. Chosen. Lyra's heart pounded. I don't understand what you mean. You will. Shadowmane's voice was calm. When the time comes, you will remember. She stared at him for a long moment. Remember what? But there was no reply. The wolves lowered their heads again, closing their eyes one by one. Lyra sat there, heart racing, her mind filled with questions and a strange feeling that something ancient was watching over her. The next morning, she tried to follow them as they hunted. The wolves moved like ghosts, silent and swift through the undergrowth, their paws barely leaving a trace. She stumbled after them, tripping on roots and vines. "Slow down," she called, breathless. A low chuckle, not a sound, but a feeling brushed through her mind. 2 legs clumsy. Lyra couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, you think you're funny?" Mist, the grey wolf, turned his head, eyes gleaming with amusement. "We know we are." For the first time since her banishment, Lyra laughed freely, the sound echoing through the trees like sunlight breaking through clouds. Later that day, they reached the edge of a ravine where a river shimmered below. The wolves leaped across with easy grace, but Lyra hesitated. Her hands were raw, her legs weak. "I can't jump that," she said nervously. Shadowmane turned back, staring at her for a moment. Then he crouched low, his eyes urging her forward. "You want me to what? Ride you?" she asked in disbelief. The wolf didn't move. "Oh, goddess, this is insane," she muttered, gripping his thick fur and climbing onto his back. He tensed, then sprang forward with a power that took her breath away. They landed safely on the other side, and Lyra burst out laughing, clinging to his neck. "That was incredible." "Trust," his mind voice whispered. "Trust keeps you alive." She swallowed hard. "I'll try." That night, the wolves brought her fresh meat from their hunt. She ate slowly, still amazed that they shared everything with her. After the meal, Mist approached and dropped something at her feet, a small, carved stone pendant shaped like a crescent moon. "What's this?" she asked, picking it up. "Yours," came the soft reply. "Moon's mark. From before." Lyra frowned. "Before what?" "Before forgetting." The pendant pulsed faintly with warmth as she held it. The moment her fingers touched its center, a flood of faint images flashed in her mind, her grandmother's voice singing a lullaby, a whisper of silver light, and the shadow of a great wolf standing behind her. She gasped and dropped it, her hands shaking. What was that?" Shadowmane watched her quietly, his gaze full of knowledge she couldn't reach yet. "Memory returns," he said. "But not all at once." Lyra clutched the pendant tightly. She didn't know what any of it meant, but she knew one thing: her life was no longer her own. Something bigger had begun, something that felt like destiny. And deep in her heart, a spark of strength stirred where despair had once lived. The next night, the peace shattered. It started with a sound one Lyra didn't recognize at first. Hooves. Dozens of them. Then the scent of steel and fire reached her. The wolves around her tensed. Shadowmane's head snapped up, ears twitching. Hunters. Lyra's blood turned cold. Hunters? You mean wolves? Men, Mist corrected, his tone dark. With silver. Before she could react, a flaming arrow struck the ground near the clearing, hissing as it burned. Lyra screamed and stumbled back. Figures emerged from the darkness, men in leather armor carrying torches and silver-tipped spears. The symbol of the Silver Pine Pack gleamed on their chests. Her breath caught. "Kale's hunters. There she is," one shouted. "The cursed girl. Kill the shadow beasts, bring her back dead or alive." Shadowmane growled, low and dangerous. The pack spread out, forming a wall between her and the intruders. "Wait!" Lyra cried. "Don't, please, they'll kill you." But the wolves didn't move. Their growls rose like thunder, eyes glowing gold in the firelight. The first hunter lunged forward, spear raised. Shadowmane met him midair, jaws snapping. The man screamed as the wolf hurled him aside like a rag doll. The clearing exploded into chaos, flames, shouting, snarls. Lyra ducked behind a rock, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would burst. She wanted to run, but she couldn't leave them. They were her pack now. Another hunter swung a torch at Fawn, who dodged gracefully, biting his arm until blood sprayed across the leaves. Two wolves dragged another down. The scent of burning wood and silver filled the air. Then she saw one of the hunters sneaking around behind the wolves, coming straight for her. He raised his bow, an arrow already narked. Lyra froze. No. The arrow flew. Before she could react, Mist leaped in front of her. The arrow buried itself deep in his shoulder. He let out a sharp yelp and collapsed. "No!" Lyra screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. "Stay with me, please." Mist's breathing was ragged. His blood was black as ink, seeping into the soil. She looked up, tears blurring her vision. The hunter was already raising another arrow. Something inside her broke open. "Stop!" she shouted. The air went silent. The fire hissed. Every shadow around them seemed to come alive, rising from the ground like black smoke. It swirled around her, wrapping her in darkness. The hunters froze, terror flooding their faces. One whispered, "The curse, she's controlling them." The shadows struck like a storm. Tendrils of darkness wrapped around the men's arms, pulling them to their knees. Their torches went out one by one, leaving only the moonlight and the silver glow of Lyra's eyes. Her voice was low, shaking but filled with power. "Leave. Now." The hunters stumbled backward, scrambling away into the forest. Within seconds, they were gone, their screams fading into the distance. When silence returned, Lyra collapsed, trembling, her hands shaking violently. The shadows faded as quickly as they'd come. The wolves surrounded her again. Shadowmanair pressed his head against her shoulder, steadying her. Fawn whimpered softly over Mist's wound. "I didn't mean to," Lyra gasped. "I didn't know I could." "You protected Pack," Shadowmanair said gently. "You used the gift." Lyra looked down at her hands, still faintly glowing with silver veins of light. "Gift," she whispered. "Or curse?" Before anyone could answer, a new voice spoke from the shadows beyond the fire. Deep, calm, powerful. "Gift." The wolves immediately turned, growling low. Shadowmanair stepped forward, hackles raised. A man emerged from between the trees. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the grace of a predator. His eyes glowed gold in the moonlight. His clothes were dark, his expression unreadable. Lyra's heart raced. "Who are you?" He stopped just beyond the circle of wolves and inclined his head. "My name is Rylan," he said. "Alpha of the Nightshade Pack." The name made the wolves' growls deepen. The Nightshade Pack was legend, a clan that lived beyond the Western Mountains, known for their connection to ancient magic. Some said they were half-shadow themselves. "I mean no harm," he continued, his voice steady. "I came because I felt the power that was unleashed here." Lyra rose slowly, wiping tears from her cheeks. "You felt that?" Rylan's eyes flicked to the wounded Mist. "Everyone within 50 miles felt it. The power of a shadow speaker has not stirred for centuries." "Shadow speaker," she echoed, confusion flooding her. Rylan's gaze softened. "You don't know what you are, do you?" Lyra shook her head. "I don't even know what's happening to me." He stepped closer, and the wolves tensed again. "Easy," he murmured to them, though his eyes never left hers. "If I meant her harm, I wouldn't have come alone." Shadowmanair didn't move, but his growl quieted slightly. Rylan looked back at Lyra. "You're not cursed. You're blessed by the moon goddess herself. You can speak to the primal wolves, the firstborn, the shadows that existed before shifters learned to take human form." She stared at him, stunned. "That's impossible. Those are just stories." "Stories," he said softly, "are often what's left of the truth." His words sank into her like roots. She thought of the way the wolves had appeared, the voices she'd heard in her mind, the shadow storm she had unleashed. Could he be right? "I don't want any of this," she whispered. "I just wanted a normal life. A pack. A mate. Now I'm hunted, and my blood kills men." Rylan stepped forward, his golden eyes warm and steady. "You can't run from who you are. But you can learn to control it. I can teach you." Lyra blinked, startled. "Teach me?" "Yes," he said simply. "But only if you trust me. The world will hunt you for what you are. Silver Pine won't be the last. You need strength, control and understanding of your gift. Without it, the shadows will consume you." She hesitated, glancing at Shadowmanair. The great wolf met her gaze and gave a single, slow nod. "Moon sent him," came the faint whisper in her mind. "He knows the path." Lyra turned back to Rylan, still uncertain. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." His jaw tightened, and for a moment, pain flickered across his face. "Because," he said quietly, "your bloodline is not unknown to me. The last shadow speaker was my grandmother's closest friend. She died saving my pack." Her breath caught. "My grandmother?" He nodded slowly. "Her name was Celine." Lyra's knees weakened. That was my grandmother's name too." "Then it's true," he murmured, almost to himself. "You're her descendant." The clearing fell silent, the fire flickering between them. Rylan took a careful step closer. Your grandmother was a legend. She bridged the world between man and beast. But her line was hunted, cursed, erased from the records. Until now. Lyra stared at him, her heart pounding. So, all this time, I wasn't broken. He met her eyes, voice low and sure. No, Lyra. You were never broken. You were born for this. The words hit her harder than Cale's rejection ever had. For the first time, she felt something new rising in her chest, not fear, not despair, but hope. She looked at her wolves, then back at him. If I go with you, they come too. Rylan's lips curved into a faint smile. I wouldn't dare ask otherwise. The forest wind stirred, carrying the scent of moonlight and ash. Lyra tightened her grip on the crescent pendant at her neck. The path ahead was unknown, but one thing was certain, she would never be the same again. The journey to the Nightshade territory was long and silent, but the silence was comfortable in a strange way. Rylan walked ahead, moving with a quiet confidence that reminded Lyra of the wolves around her, controlled, graceful, yet powerful. Her pack of shadows followed behind, padding silently through the forest like living mist. Lyra walked between worlds, man and beast, light and dark. She could feel it more each day. The voices of the wolves hummed in her mind like an ancient song, one she still didn't fully understand. But as they crossed deeper into the forest, something inside her began to stir. The trees grew taller here, the trunks black and shining under the moonlight. A river wound through the land, its surface smooth and silver. The wolves stopped to drink, but Lyra's attention was drawn to the sky. The moon hung low, almost full, glowing brighter than she'd ever seen. Rylan glanced back at her. You can feel it, can't you? Lyra nodded slowly. It's like it's calling to me. It is, he said. The moon remembers her chosen. She frowned. Then why do I remember nothing about her? He didn't answer immediately. His gaze softened. Because remembering means pain. Your mind locked it away to protect you. But the closer you get to your purpose, the more those memories will return. Lyra stared at him, uneasy. What kind of memories? The truth, Rylan said quietly. The truth about who you are. And what was done to you. Before she could ask more, a faint whisper brushed her mind. It wasn't one of the wolves. It was a woman's voice, soft and familiar. Child of shadow and moonlight, do not fear what you are. You were born of my song. Lyra gasped. Her knees buckled, and she fell to the ground, clutching her head. Visions flooded her mind, silver light, a forest burning, her grandmother's voice chanting an ancient melody. And behind it all, the face of a wolf made of starlight, eyes filled with sorrow. Rylan caught her before she hit the ground. Lyra, what did you see? She was shaking, her voice trembling. A woman, her voice sounded like the wind. She said I was born of her song. And I saw fire. He looked grim. The moon goddess is trying to awaken what's buried in you. But she's doing it too fast. Lyra tried to steady her breathing. Why me? Why now? Rylan hesitated, then said, because darkness is rising again. The balance between shifters and wild wolves is breaking. The goddess sends her chosen when the world begins to forget what it means to be one with nature. Lyra swallowed hard. You mean I'm supposed to fix that? I'm just a broken omega who can't even shift. He shook his head. No. You're something far greater. The ability to shift is a gift of the body. The ability to connect is a gift of the soul. Yours is the older gift. Her chest tightened at his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, with faith, not pity. They made camp by the river that night. The wolves rested in a circle while Rylan gathered wood. Lyra sat near the water's edge, staring at her reflection. The silver pendant mist had given her shimmered softly at her neck. Rylan joined her, sitting a few feet away. You look like her, he said quietly. Like who? Your grandmother, Celine. I met her when I was a boy. Lyra turned to him sharply. You knew her? He nodded. She came to the Nightshade lands once, during the Great War. My pack was losing. The wild wolves had turned feral, out of balance. She calmed them. She sang to them, and they listened. I'll never forget that sound. It wasn't a song, it was a command wrapped in love. Lyra's eyes softened. My grandmother used to sing to me when I was little. I thought they were lullabies. They were, Ryland said, but not just for sleep. She was teaching you the old words, the language of the moon. They were meant to awaken in you when the time was right. Lyra ran her fingers along the pendant. Then why did everything go wrong? Why was I cursed? Why did my pack hate me? He sighed. Because the Silverpine elders feared what they didn't understand. The last Shadow Speaker's bloodline was forbidden to exist. Your gift was seen as dangerous, something that could overthrow alphas. They silenced it the only way they knew how, through fear. Lyra's hands clenched. So they branded me cursed, just to keep me powerless. Yes. His voice was soft but full of anger. They couldn't control you, so they destroyed you instead. Lyra looked into the fire, her expression hardening. Then maybe it's time I stop being afraid of what I am. Ryland smiled faintly. Good. Because soon, you won't have a choice. She turned to him, brow furrowed. What do you mean? He stood and glanced toward the trees. Tomorrow, we cross into Nightshade territory. But before you can enter, the goddess will test you. Every Shadow Speaker faces the trial of memory. If you pass, your powers will awaken completely. If you fail. He met her gaze, serious and calm. You'll lose yourself to the shadows forever. Lyra's heart pounded, but she nodded. Then I'll pass. Ryland's lips curved slightly. You sound like your grandmother. That night, long after Ryland and the wolves slept, Lyra sat alone under the moonlight, her pendant glowing brighter with each heartbeat. Somewhere deep inside her, a voice whispered again. Remember, child of the moon. Remember the song of creation. She didn't understand the words, but she whispered them back anyway, her voice trembling but strong. I remember. And far above, the moon shone brighter, as if answering her vow. They reached Nightshade territory by dawn. The forest changed as they entered. It was quieter, older. The trees were massive, their roots curling over ancient stones marked with runes. Mist still limped from his wound, but the others moved easily, keeping their formation around Lyra like silent guardians. Ryland led her through a narrow gorge where mist rose from the ground. The air grew thick and cool, and the sound of running water echoed faintly. Finally, they came to a clearing unlike any Lyra had ever seen. At its center stood a silver pool surrounded by monoliths etched with glowing symbols. The air shimmered with energy. Ryland stopped beside her. This is the moon's mirror. The place where every Shadow Speaker awakens. Here, the goddess will test your heart. Lyra looked uneasy. What kind of test? He turned to her, his expression serious. One that shows you the truth you've been running from. She glanced at the wolves. What about them? They can't follow. This path is yours alone. Shadowmane stepped forward and pressed his head against her hand. Trust Moon. We wait. Lyra's throat tightened. She nodded and stepped toward the pool. The water shimmered like glass. The moment her reflection touched it, ripples spread outward, glowing with silver light. The world around her blurred, and the ground vanished beneath her feet. She stood in darkness. The air was cold and heavy, filled with whispers. Then, slowly, shapes formed. Her old pack's clearing, the blood moon above, Kale standing before her. Lyra gasped. No, not again. She was reliving the rejection ceremony. The same humiliation, the same crushing pain in her chest. The crowd shouted. Kale's voice thundered, You are cursed. She fell to her knees, crying out. Please, stop. But the vision didn't stop. It grew worse. The firelight turned to shadow, twisting around her. From the darkness, a monstrous wolf appeared, its body made of smoke and flame, eyes burning red. It growled, a voice like thunder echoing in her mind. You are weakness. You are failure. You bring death. Lyra shook her head, backing away. No, that's not true. You were rejected for a reason. Tears streamed down her face. Stop it. The beast lunged, knocking her to the ground. Its claws pressed against her chest. Pain seared through her like fire. Then, from somewhere deep within, a voice whispered softly, "Child of shadow, face your fear. Speak your truth." Her fear twisted into anger. She gritted her teeth and shouted, "I am not cursed." The shadow wolf roared. "I am not weak," she screamed again, pushing against it with all her strength. "I was chosen." Light exploded from her chest, silver and pure. The beast howled, its body dissolving into mist. The pain vanished, replaced by warmth. When Lyra opened her eyes, she was standing again in the clearing. The pool shimmered softly, and her reflection was different now. Her eyes glowed silver, her hair streaked with faint lines of light. Ryland stood waiting at the edge, his expression proud but cautious. "You did it," he said quietly. "You faced your shadow." She stepped out of the water, trembling. "It showed me everything I hated about myself. Every word they used to break me. But I fought it." "That's the point," he said. "The moon doesn't test your strength. She tests your will to rise." The wolves rushed to her, tails wagging, their joy rippling through her mind like sunlight through clouds. Billionaire pressed his head against her leg, murmuring softly, "Pack strong again." Lyra knelt beside him, smiling through tears. "We're strong together." Ryland stepped closer. "Your awakening is complete. You are no longer an omega. You are the moon's echo." She looked up at him, her eyes still shining faintly. "Then what happens now?" He held her gaze for a long moment before saying, "Now, you learn to lead." They returned to the Nightshade stronghold that evening. Lyra had expected a fortress, but what she saw instead took her breath away. The pack lived among the trees, homes built into massive oaks, bridges connecting branches, fires burning softly in hanging lanterns. Wolves and shifters moved together peacefully, their harmony obvious in every motion. "This is beautiful," Lyra whispered. Ryland smiled. "My grandmother built this place to remind us that strength doesn't come from dominance, it comes from balance." As they entered the main hall, pack members stopped and stared. Some bowed respectfully, others watched her with curiosity. Whispers filled the air, "The shadow speaker, the lost bloodline reborn." Ryland turned to her. "They've been waiting for someone like you for a long time." Lyra shook her head. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You will be," he said softly. "Your grandmother believed the same thing before she faced her own trial." They reached a balcony overlooking the forest. The moon hung high, full and bright. Lyra leaned against the railing, taking it all in. Ryland stood beside her, his voice low. "What you did today, most would have failed. You faced your deepest fear and found your truth. The moon chose well." Lyra turned to him, searching his face. "Why do you care so much about this?" "About me?" He met her gaze steadily. "Because when I was young, your grandmother saved my pack. And when she died, she told my father that her granddaughter would one day save the world in return." Lyra blinked. "She said that?" "She did." He smiled faintly. "And now, here you are." The night wind carried the scent of the forest around them. Lyra looked up at the moon, her heart full of fear, hope, and something new, a spark of belonging. "I won't let her down," she said softly. "I'll learn everything I can. I'll protect this gift, and the wolves who gave me a home." Ryland's golden eyes shone with quiet pride. "Then, Lyra," he said, his voice almost reverent, "welcome to the Nightshade pack." Above them, the wolves howled in harmony, a sound of unity, of promise, and of destiny awakening beneath the moon. The next morning, Lyra woke to the sound of soft footsteps and the scent of pine drifting through the open window. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the forest in shades of gold and amber. She blinked against the light and sat up, wrapped in the soft furs Ryland's pack had given her. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The safety, the warmth, it all felt foreign, almost unreal after years of rejection and cold nights. Then she heard the wolves outside, their low, rumbling communication echoing faintly through the trees, and it all came rushing back. The Nightshade pack had taken her in. For the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. She stepped outside onto the wooden balcony built into the great oak where her quarters stood. The forest below was alive, wolves running along the mossy paths, shifters moving gracefully between the trees, laughter, and the crackle of fires mingling in the crisp morning air. It wasn't a pack built on fear or control. It was alive in harmony. "You're awake early." Lyra turned. Rylan stood by the doorway, wearing simple black clothes and an amused expression. His golden eyes seemed brighter in the morning light. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "It's too peaceful. I keep expecting someone to yell at me or throw me out." He smiled faintly. "You're not in Silver Pine anymore, Lyra. You're safe here." The word safe made her chest tighten. She wanted to believe it, but safety had always been temporary for her. Rylan gestured for her to follow. "Come. There's something I want to show you." She followed him through a winding path that led down to the forest floor. The air grew cooler, thicker, as they moved deeper into the heart of the Nightshade lands. They passed through an arch of stone covered in vines, and the energy changed ancient, sacred, humming with power. They entered a circular clearing surrounded by standing stones engraved with runes that pulsed faintly with silver light. At its center lay an altar of black marble, polished smooth. "What is this place?" Lyra whispered. "The Hall of Bloodlines," Ryland said quietly. "Every Alpha and Luna of the Nightshade line is remembered here. But it also honors those who carried the old gifts, the Moon's chosen." She stepped closer. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the altar's surface. Rylan touched the center, and a pattern flared to life, a circle of intertwined wolves. "This," he said, "is the symbol of the shadow line. Your family's mark." Lyra stared, stunned. "My family? You're saying this belongs to me?" He nodded. "Your grandmother, Selene, stood in this very place when she first awakened her full power. The goddess marked her bloodline as the bridge between wolf and shadow. The same blood runs through you." She ran her fingers across the glowing markings, and as she did, memories surged again, her grandmother's gentle voice, the hum of lullabies, the silver light that had surrounded her as a child. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about the first wolves," Lyra whispered. "She said they were born from the moon's tears." Rylan nodded. "And the first shadow speaker was the child of one of those tears, a being born between light and dark. You're her descendant. That's why your blood calls to the shadows." Lyra's eyes widened. "Then the curse, it was never real." "No," he said firmly. "The curse was a lie. Created by those who feared your power. The Silverpine elders erased your family from their records, branding you as cursed so no one would question their fear." Her fists clenched at her sides. "They destroyed my life for this." Rylan's voice softened. "They destroyed what they didn't understand. But you can change that. You can remind the packs what true balance means." Lyra looked up at him, fire in her eyes. "Then teach me. Teach me how to use it." Rylan studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. But you need to understand something first. The shadow line doesn't just command darkness. It bears it." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "The shadows are alive, Lyra. They listen, they obey, but they also hunger. Every shadow speaker has walked close to losing themselves. Your grandmother kept her balance because her heart was pure. But power without control," he looked at her seriously, "it destroys." Lyra met his gaze steadily. "Then I'll learn to control it." Rylan's expression softened, pride flickering across his face. "Good. Then we begin tonight." That evening, the moon rose full and pale. The forest was quiet, the air thick with expectation. The wolves gathered around the altar in a wide circle, their eyes glowing faintly. Rylan stood across from Lyra, his hands clasped behind his back. "Close your eyes," he said. "Listen." She obeyed, letting the night seep into her senses. The sound of rustling leaves, the slow rhythm of her heartbeat, the breath of the wolves, all of it blended together. "Now," Rylan's voice came softly, "reach inward. Find the shadow within you. Don't fight it. Don't fear it. Just listen." Lyra took a shaky breath. She reached inside herself, into that place that always felt different, the part of her she had been told was broken. It pulsed now, slow and steady, like a second heart. "Good," Rylan said. "Now call it." Her lips parted. She didn't know the words, but somehow they came anyway, flowing from her like a forgotten song. Venera, soleth lunara. The air shifted. The shadows around the clearing began to stir, rising like smoke from the ground. The wolves lowered their heads but did not flee. The darkness coiled around her arms, wrapping her in its cool embrace. Lyra's eyes snapped open, glowing with silver light. The power was vast, alive, and for a heartbeat she felt everything, the heartbeat of the earth, the wolves' thoughts, the whisper of the moon. It was overwhelming, intoxicating. But then, pain. Sharp, burning pain ripped through her chest. The shadows surged, hungry, trying to take more. Lyra. Ryland's voice cut through the haze. Control it. You're letting it feed on your fear. She gasped, dropping to her knees. I can't. Ryland stepped forward, pressing his hand over hers. Then focus on me. On my voice. On your pack. Remember why you fight. She forced herself to breathe. The wolves howled in unison, their sound anchoring her. Slowly, the darkness began to recede, curling back into her skin like waves drawn into the sea. When it was over, she was trembling but alive. Ryland knelt beside her, his expression full of awe. You did it. You touched the shadows and returned. That's more than most could do their first time. Lyra panted, clutching her chest. It felt like it wanted me. It does, he said quietly. But now, it will also obey you. She looked up at him, exhausted but smiling. Then we keep going. Until I master it. Ryland's lips curved. You really are your grandmother's blood. The wolves howled again, their voices echoing into the night, and Lyra felt something deep within her shift, a new strength awakening, a purpose that felt older than time itself. 2 weeks passed. Under Ryland's guidance, Lyra trained daily. She learned to summon shadows into shapes, claws, shields, even wings that shimmered faintly when she moved. The power responded to her emotions. Calm brought balance, fear brought chaos. The wolves watched her with reverence, often joining in her training. Shadow Manair would dart forward, testing her reflexes, while Fawn moved beside her, guiding her when the shadows grew wild. Each night, she grew stronger. But the peace didn't last. On the 15th night, Ryland burst into her chambers, his expression grim. We're under threat, he said. Silverpine scouts were seen near the border. Lyra froze. Kale? Most likely. He's heard about you. He's gathering allies to hunt you down. Her stomach twisted. He'll never stop, will he? No, Ryland said. Not while he believes you're a danger. He fears what you represent. Lyra stood, her eyes flashing. Then let him come. I won't run this time. Ryland's jaw tightened. That's exactly what he wants. He wants you angry, reckless. If he provokes you into using your power without control, he can justify killing you. Lyra took a deep breath, steadying herself. Then we'll be ready. Ryland studied her, his voice softening. You don't have to prove anything, Lyra. Yes, I do, she said quietly. I need to prove it to myself. The next night, the forest trembled with movement. The wolves sensed it first, growling low as the scent of strangers drifted through the wind. Ryland stood at the front line with his warriors, silver light glinting on their blades. Lyra stood beside him, her cloak fluttering in the wind. Her pendant glowed faintly against her skin. When the first group of Silverpine soldiers appeared through the trees, her heart stuttered. They carried torches and silver nets, weapons meant to kill wolves. At their center stood Kale. He looked older now, colder. His golden eyes burned with the same arrogance she remembered. So it's true, he said, voice echoing across the clearing. The cursed Omega still lives. And now she plays goddess with beasts. Lyra's voice was calm. You should have left me to die, Kale. He sneered. The moon made a mistake with you. I'm here to fix it. The wolves behind her growled. The air grew tense. Ryland stepped forward, his tone deadly calm. You'll leave now, Silverpine. This land is under Nightshade protection. Kale laughed. You think I fear you? You've grown weak, Ryland. Hiding behind a broken girl and her pets. Lyra's power stirred inside her, hot and sharp. The shadows whispered at the edge of her vision. Ryland's hand brushed hers lightly. Don't. That's what he wants. But Kale smirked, voice dripping with venom. I rejected you for a reason, Lyra. You were never worthy of my pack, or of me. The shadows snapped. A rush of black energy erupted from the ground, circling Lyra in a spiral of silver fire. The torches around Kale's men blew out, and the temperature dropped so sharply that frost spread across the ground. Kale stepped back, startled. What are you? Lyra's voice echoed with power. I am not cursed. Her eyes glowed silver as the shadows surged forward, wrapping around the soldiers' weapons and shattering them. Wolves howled, the sound blending with the hum of her power. Ryland moved beside her, his presence steady, his own aura flaring in defense. Enough, he commanded. Lyra's body trembled as she forced herself to stop. The shadows withdrew reluctantly, retreating into the ground. The air stilled. Kale stood frozen, his arrogance gone, his eyes wide with fear. What are you? He whispered. Lyra took a step forward. Everything you said I could never be. Kale stumbled back, then signaled to his men. Retreat. The Silverpine warriors fled into the forest, their fear trailing behind them like smoke. When they were gone, Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Ryland caught her before she hit the ground. You could have killed them all, he said softly. I didn't want to, she whispered. But I needed them to see. Ryland helped her stand, his hand lingering at her waist. You're stronger than you know, Lyra. But your power has a cost. Remember that. She met his gaze, eyes still faintly glowing. I'm willing to pay it. Ryland's expression softened. Then the world has truly changed. The wolves howled again, their voices echoing through the night, a warning and a promise. And Lyra, the once rejected Omega, stood beneath the moonlight with power radiating from her skin, no longer afraid of who she was. Because the hunted girl had become the hunter. The forest was silent again, but the quiet carried a weight that pressed down on Lyra's chest. Smoke from the torches drifted away into the cold night air, leaving behind the scent of fear and ash. The wolves lingered near the borders, eyes still glowing, hackles still raised. Every instinct told them the danger wasn't gone, it had only pulled back to gather strength. Lyra stood among them, her heartbeat slow but steady, her body still humming with the echo of the power she had unleashed. Her hands trembled, faint traces of darkness curling at her fingertips like mist. She could feel it still whispering to her, wanting to be used again. Ryland's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. Breathe, he said softly. Don't let the shadows keep feeding. She drew in a shaky breath, exhaling through clenched teeth. The black mist faded, disappearing back into the earth. I didn't mean to lose control, she whispered. You didn't, Ryland replied. You stopped yourself before it consumed you. That's what matters. Lyra nodded, though her chest still ached from the pull of that raw, consuming power. She turned toward him, her eyes tired. He'll come back. You know that, right? Kale won't stop. I know, Ryland said quietly. But he's afraid now. That will slow him down. Afraid of me, she said bitterly. He met her gaze. Afraid of what you represent. Lyra frowned. And what's that? The truth, Ryland said simply. That the old ways were never meant to die. That the moon didn't create alphas to rule through fear, but through unity. You are the proof of that. You're the bridge between what was and what should be. She looked away, uncomfortable under the weight of his faith. I never asked to be any of this. No one chosen by the moon ever does, Ryland murmured. They walked back to the village in silence, the wolves padding quietly beside them. The Nightshade pack had gathered, their eyes wide as they watched Lyra pass. Some bowed. Others simply stared, whispering her name like it was a legend come to life. When they reached the great oak, Ryland stopped her at the steps. Rest tonight, he said. Tomorrow, we train again. Lyra hesitated. And if Kale attacks before that? Then we'll face him together, he said. But you're no longer the girl he threw away. Don't ever forget that. She nodded, though sleep didn't come easily that night. Her dreams were full of shifting shadows, of golden eyes and blood-red moons. And beneath it all, a voice whispered. Trust the bond. It will lead you to your fate. The next morning dawned grey and cold. The air carried the scent of rain, heavy and electric. Lyra woke before sunrise and found Rylan already outside, sparring with two of his warriors. His movements were fast and fluid, every strike calculated, controlled. When he saw her, he stopped, brushing a hand through his dark hair. "You're early." "Couldn't sleep," she said, stepping forward. "The shadows wouldn't let me." He smiled faintly. "Then they're restless, just like you." He tossed her a wooden staff. "Let's see how well you've learned to balance them." She caught it easily. "You mean fight?" "Balance is a kind of fight," Rylan said, circling her slowly. "Every time you control your power, you win. Every time you let it control you, you lose. So fight me. No shadows. No tricks. Just you." Lyra frowned but raised the staff. "If I hit you, don't say I didn't warn you." He laughed softly. "If you can hit me, I'll let you lead the next patrol." That was all the challenge she needed. She struck first, fast and sharp. Rylan dodged easily, his movements smooth as water. She spun, striking again, this time forcing him to block. The sound of wood clashing echoed through the clearing. Her breath quickened, her muscles burning as she pushed harder. For every strike she made, he countered effortlessly, his golden eyes gleaming with quiet amusement. "You're hesitating," he said, parrying her next blow. "Don't think. Feel." "I am feeling," she snapped, swinging again. "No," he said, stepping closer, their weapons locked between them. "You're holding back." She growled, frustration building. "Maybe because I don't want to hurt you." Rylan's lips curved in a half-smile. "Then you'll never learn." He swept her legs out from under her in one smooth motion. She hit the ground hard, breath leaving her in a gasp. He offered her a hand, his voice low. Again. Lyra took his hand but didn't stand. She yanked instead, pulling him down with her. He fell, startled, and she rolled on top of him, pinning his wrist to the ground with the staff. "Looks like I win," she said breathlessly. Rylan stared up at her, his eyes burning gold, his chest rising and falling fast. "Maybe you do." The air between them changed, thick, charged. Lyra could feel his warmth beneath her, the faint hum of the bond that connected them. Her pulse quickened. He lifted a hand, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Your eyes," he murmured. "They glow when you fight." She blinked, flustered, trying to look away. "That's not exactly helpful." "It's beautiful," he said simply. Her breath caught. For a moment, neither moved. Then Shadowmane's low growl broke the spell, and they both stood quickly, awkwardness thick in the air. "We should train more," she said quickly. Rylan smiled faintly. "Yes. But not today." He looked toward the horizon, where storm clouds gathered like bruises. "Rain's coming. Stay inside tonight. The air feels wrong." Lyra frowned. "Wrong how?" He hesitated. "There's something else out there. A scent I don't recognize." She didn't ask further. His instincts were rarely wrong. That night, thunder rolled through the forest. Lyra stood on the balcony, watching the rain blur the world into silver lines. Her pendant glowed faintly, reacting to the storm. Then, faintly, she heard it, a howl in the distance. Not one of her wolves. It was sharper, more desperate. She gripped the railing, unease crawling up her spine. "That's not ours." Before she could move, Billionaire appeared below, his fur slick with rain. "Danger comes," his voice whispered in her mind. "Not hunters. Something older." "Older," she echoed, but he was already gone, disappearing into the storm. A flash of lightning lit the sky, and for a split second, she saw it, an enormous shadow moving between the trees. Not wolf. Not human. Something ancient. And it was coming straight toward them. The first scream shattered the night. Lyra bolted down the stairs, heart pounding, as thunder roared overhead. The Nightshade pack was already moving, warriors racing toward the outer borders. The wolves howled, their cries mixing with the storm. Rylan was waiting near the gates, rain streaming down his face, his sword drawn. "It's not Silver Pine," he shouted over the storm. "Something else is here." Before she could respond, The ground trembled. Trees swayed violently as a deep, guttural snarl rolled through the forest, a sound so powerful it shook the air itself. From the shadows, the creature emerged. It was massive, twice the size of any wolf, its fur black as night, eyes burning like molten gold. Scars crisscrossed its body, and its teeth gleamed like blades. "What is that?" Lyra whispered. Ryland's face hardened. "An ancient. One of the firstborn. A wolf that never became man." The creature's gaze locked on Lyra. It let out a low growl, head lowering. The rain hissed against its fur like steam. Ryland stepped in front of her. "Get back." "No," she said firmly, stepping beside him. "It's looking at me." Lightning split the sky, and in that flash of light, she saw something, symbols glowing faintly across the creature's chest. Her pendant pulsed in response. "It bears the moon's mark," she whispered. "It's not here to attack." Ryland looked at her sharply. "Lyra." But she was already moving forward. The wolves around them growled in warning, but she raised a hand. "Hold." She stopped a few feet away from the ancient. Its breath was hot, heavy with power. The rain sizzled where it fell against its fur. Slowly, Lyra lifted her pendant. The silver light grew stronger, spilling across the clearing. "I am Lyra of the Shadow Line," she said, her voice steady despite the thunder. "Daughter of Selene. Speak if you serve the moon." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature lowered its head. A deep, rumbling voice filled her mind. "Moon's echo, you live." Lyra's eyes widened. "You can speak." "We all can," it said. "But few can hear." The wolves around her watched silently as the ancient's gaze softened. The balance falters. The old blood calls for aid. You must restore what was broken. "What do you mean?" she asked. "The packs wage war on nature. The goddess weakens. You are her bond made flesh. Without you, both will fall." Ryland stepped closer, sword still drawn. "If this is true, why now? Why appear after centuries?" The ancient turned its gaze on him. "Because the shadow has risen again." Lyra frowned. "Shadow. The corrupted ones," it said. "Born from hatred, feeding on fear. They move unseen through men's hearts. Soon, they will rise in flesh once more." The storm howled louder, lightning flashing in jagged lines. "Find the moonstone," the creature continued. "Only it can restore the bond between light and dark. Without it, all will be lost." Then, before either of them could speak, the ancient threw back its head and howled a sound that made the air vibrate and the trees bow. The light around it grew until it was blinding, and when it faded, the creature was gone. Only a faint silver mark remained burned into the earth. Ryland stared at it, disbelief in his eyes. It vanished. Lyra knelt, touching the mark. It pulsed faintly, a pattern of moons and stars. "No," she said softly. "It left a message." Her pendant glowed again, and the symbols rearranged themselves into a single phrase: "Seek the stone where the moon was first broken." She looked up at Ryland, rain dripping from her hair. "Do you know what that means?" He nodded slowly, his expression grim. "The ruins of Alaris. The birthplace of the first bond between shifters and the moon. It's across the mountains, deep in Silverpine territory." Lyra's stomach sank. "So to save the packs, I have to go back home." Ryland sheathed his sword. "Then we go together." Lyra shook her head. "No. It's me they want. If I bring you, it'll start a war." He stepped closer, his eyes blazing gold. "You're not going alone." She met his gaze stubbornly. "You can't protect me forever, Ryland." His hand cupped her face, his voice soft but firm. "Maybe not. But I'll damn well try." For a moment, time stopped. The rain fell softly between them, and something deep and ancient thrummed through their bond: warmth, trust, and a pull that neither could ignore. Lyra's breath trembled. "Ryland." He leaned in slightly, his voice low. "You don't have to face the darkness alone." Her pulse fluttered, her shadows stirring around them like a whispering wind. She didn't move away this time. "Then stay," she whispered. "Until the end." Ryland's eyes softened, and he nodded. "Always." Above them, the moon broke through the storm clouds, casting silver light over their faces. It shimmered against Lyra's pendant, marking her skin with a faint glow, the mark of the moon. It burned softly, not in pain, but in power, a promise of the destiny waiting ahead. And as the wolves howled under the clearing sky, Lyra knew that the path forward would test every part of her. The bond between her and Rylan, the strength of her gift, the truth of her bloodline. Because the shadow that once hunted her was no longer just a man. It was coming for the world. The following days passed in tense preparation. The rain stopped, but the forest didn't feel calm, it held its breath, as if waiting for something to break. The Nightshade wolves fortified their borders, while Rylan and Lyra spent long hours in the war hall, poring over old maps and moonlit texts. The words left by the ancient still echoed in Lyra's mind. Seek the stone where the moon was first broken. It wasn't just a riddle, it was a call. But every answer led to one truth: she would have to return to Silverpine territory, to the place that had exiled her. Rylan stood over the map table, his arms crossed. The ruins of Alaris lie beyond the Blackridge Mountains, he said. No pack has gone there in decades. The forest around it is cursed. Shifters who entered never came back. Lyra studied the markings carefully. Then that's where the moonstone must be. Rylan looked up, meeting her eyes. You understand what this means. If we cross that border, Cale will know. He already knows I'm alive, she said quietly. If I don't go, everything the ancient warned about will come true. Rylan hesitated, then nodded. Then we prepare at dawn. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. The air felt heavy, her thoughts restless. She sat by the window, looking out at the moon. Her pendant glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. She remembered the ancient's voice. Trust the bond. It will lead you to your fate. Her gaze drifted to Rylan's quarters across the courtyard. A faint light flickered through his window, he wasn't sleeping either. Without thinking, she went to him. He looked up when she entered, surprise flickering across his face. Couldn't sleep. Could you? She asked softly. He chuckled. Not with what's coming. He motioned for her to sit. You're worried. I'm not afraid of Cale anymore, she said. I'm afraid of what's inside me. The shadows. She nodded. When I fought Cale's soldiers, it felt good to let it out. Too good. What if that power changes me? What if it turns me into something I can't control? Rylan leaned forward. Listen to me. Power doesn't change who you are, it reveals it. And I've seen your heart, Lyra. It's not darkness. It's light fighting to survive in a world that tried to snuff it out. His words sank deep into her chest. She looked at him, the flickering firelight softening the hard edges of his face. You really believe that? He smiled faintly. I wouldn't be risking my life for you if I didn't. For a moment, they just sat there, the silence filled with something unspoken. Then, quietly, Lyra said, if we don't come back from this. We will, Rylan said. But if we don't, she continued, her voice trembling, I want you to know everything I've become, every step forward. It started with you believing in me. Rylan's eyes softened. He reached out, brushing a thumb along her jaw. And I'll keep believing in you. Until the last breath I take. The moment hung between them, fragile and electric. Then she stood abruptly, breaking the spell. We should rest. Tomorrow will be long. Rylan nodded, though his gaze lingered on her as she left. The door closed softly behind her, but the echo of her heartbeat remained in his chest long after. By dawn, they were ready. Shadowmanair, Fawn, and 2 other wolves accompanied them. The Nightshade pack gathered to see them off, the air thick with both pride and worry. Rylan gave a final order to his beater. Hold the borders. If we're not back in 7 days, assume the worst. Lyra stepped beside him. We'll come back, she said firmly. He gave her a small smile. That's the plan. They set off into the mist. The journey was hard, narrow trails, steep cliffs, endless rain. But the further they went, the more Lyra could feel it, a pull, deep in her blood, guiding her like a compass toward something ancient. At night, they camped under the stars. The wolves kept watch while Rylan and Lyra spoke quietly by the fire. They shared stories of their childhoods, hers filled with pain and exile, his with duty and loneliness. The more they talked, the less the distance between them felt like armor. One night, as they sat watching the flames, Lyra asked, "Do you ever wonder if the moon goddess makes mistakes?" Rylan looked at her thoughtfully. "No. I think she lets us make them. So we can understand what she's trying to teach us." Lyra smiled faintly. "And what is she trying to teach you?" He glanced at her. "That even in darkness, there's something worth fighting for." She held his gaze, her heart thudding. "And what about me?" He smiled softly. "You're still learning. But my guess. She's teaching you that being different was never a punishment, it was a calling." His words warmed her more than the fire ever could. For the first time in years, she didn't feel broken. She felt chosen. By the 5th day, the forest began to change. The trees grew taller, their bark blackened as though burned long ago. The air was colder here, and no birds sang. "We're close," Lyra said quietly, her pendant glowing brighter. Rylan nodded, drawing his sword. "Stay alert." The wolves moved ahead, their ears twitching. A faint hum vibrated through the ground, like distant thunder. Then, through the fog, the ruins appeared. Massive stone arches loomed overhead, covered in vines and glowing faint symbols. Shattered statues of wolves and moons lay scattered across the clearing. The air shimmered faintly with silver mist. "This is it," Rylan murmured. "The birthplace of the bond." Lyra stepped forward, heart pounding. Her pendant pulsed, resonating with the energy in the air. "It's calling me." She walked to the center of the ruins, where a cracked pedestal stood. Embedded within it was a shard of pure crystal, glowing softly, the moonstone. As she reached for it, the ground trembled violently. "Lyra, wait!" Rylan shouted, but it was too late. Her fingers brushed the stone, and a surge of energy exploded outward. Light engulfed her vision. She was falling, through memories not her own. She saw wolves running under a full moon, humans shifting for the first time, the moon goddess crying as shadows rose from her tears. Then the vision twisted. A figure appeared in the darkness, a man cloaked in smoke and flame, eyes burning red. His voice rumbled through her mind like thunder. "The light returns, but it will fall again. You cannot stop what has begun." Lyra gasped, clutching her head. "Who are you?" "I am the end of your kind. The Shadow King." His laughter echoed as black tendrils wrapped around her, dragging her deeper into the void. Then, faintly, she heard Rylan's voice. "Lyra, come back to me." A hand warm, strong, grabbed hers and pulled. Light burst through the darkness, and she gasped, returning to the ruins. She fell to her knees, shaking, Rylan beside her, holding her tight. "What did you see?" he asked urgently. She trembled. "A man, or something like one. He called himself the Shadow King. He said the light would fall again." Rylan's face hardened. The Shadow King was the moon's first creation gone wrong. A being of pure darkness. The goddess imprisoned him ages ago. Then his waking, Lyra said, her voice trembling. "And his coming for us." The wolves growled low, sensing the danger. Before Rylan could respond, a rumble shook the earth again. The symbols on the ruins flared red, not silver. "Run," he shouted. The pedestal cracked open, releasing a torrent of dark mist that shot into the sky. From it, shapes began to form, shadow creatures, snarling, eyeless things that moved like smoke. Rylan drew his blade, slashing at the first one that lunged toward them. "Go, Lyra. Get the stone. I can't leave you," she shouted. "Now." Lyra turned and grabbed the moonstone. The moment her hand closed around it, light exploded outward, searing through the shadow creatures. They screamed, disintegrating into dust. The storm ceased. The ruins fell silent. Lyra collapsed, clutching the glowing stone to her chest. Her breathing was ragged, her body trembling. Rylan knelt beside her, brushing the hair from her face. "You did it." "No," she whispered, looking up at him. "This is only the beginning." The moonstone's light dimmed, leaving a faint mark burned into her palm, a crescent moon wrapped in flame. "The Shadow King saw me," she said softly. "And now he knows where I am." Rylan met her gaze, his expression grave but full of resolve. "Then we prepare for war." Lyra nodded, clutching the stone tighter. Let him come. Above them, the moon emerged from the clouds, its light falling over the ruins. But for the first time, its glow seemed weaker, its edges dimmed by a growing shadow spreading across the night sky. And as the wolves howled, Lyra felt the balance shift once more. The war between light and darkness had begun. The journey back to Nightshade territory was silent, heavy with tension. The wolves padded beside Lyra and Rylan in complete silence, their golden eyes scanning the dark forest. The moonstone pulsed faintly in Lyra's grip, its glow dim and unsteady like a dying heartbeat. When they finally reached the borders, the pack was already waiting. Word of their return had spread fast, and the air buzzed with unease. The moment Lyra stepped into the clearing, she could feel it, the world itself had shifted. The air was colder, the shadows longer. Rylan spoke to his beater, who met them halfway. What happened while we were gone? The beater bowed his head. Strange things, Alpha. The moon's light dims earlier each night. The rivers are freezing from the inside out. The wolves grow restless. And, his gaze flicked to Lyra. Silver Pine has declared war. Kale claims the dark which has cursed the land. Lyra's stomach twisted. Of course he would. Rylan clenched his fists. He's using fear to rally the packs. And he'll succeed, Lyra said quietly. Fear is stronger than truth. He looked at her, determination burning in his golden eyes. Then we show them something stronger. That night, the moonstone lay on the altar in the Hall of Bloodlines. Its glow flickered faintly, responding only to Lyra's touch. She stood before it, exhaustion etched into her face. I thought this would stop the darkness, she whispered. But it feels like it's growing faster. Rylan stepped beside her, his voice low. You didn't fail. You woke the power that can stop it. The Shadow King knows you're a threat, that's why the world is changing. He's stirring his army before you're ready. Lyra's fingers brushed the stone. Then I need to get ready fast. You're strong, but you can't do this alone, Rylan said. You'll need allies, packs willing to fight beside you. She laughed bitterly. Allies? The other packs hate me. They think I'm cursed. Then we make them see who you truly are, he said firmly. You saved them once already when you fought Kale's men. They just don't know it yet. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes glimmering in the moonlight. You think they'll listen to me? Rylan's voice softened. If they don't, they'll listen to me. And if they still refuse, his expression darkened. Then they'll listen to the truth when the shadows devour them. At dawn, the pack gathered in the training yard. Lyra stood before them, the moonstone hanging from a chain around her neck. The wolves bowed their heads, sensing the power that radiated from her. Rylan stepped forward. The Silver Pine Alpha spreads lies, he announced. He claims this woman brings the curse upon us. But I tell you now, she is the only one standing between us and the darkness to come. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lyra felt their eyes on her, some curious, some afraid. She raised her voice, steady and clear. I was born with a gift that once terrified me. I thought it made me cursed, broken, unworthy. But I've seen what true darkness looks like. I've seen the Shadow King's face. The crowd stilled, hanging on her every word. The darkness that's coming isn't from me, it's from him. It feeds on fear, on division, on hatred. The more we fight each other, the stronger it grows. But united, she glanced at the wolves around her. We can stop it. The moon chose us for balance, not war. Rylan stepped beside her, his voice cutting through the silence. We fight not for territory, not for dominance, but for survival. The wolves howled as one, their voices echoing through the forest. The Nightshade pack had chosen their side. Lyra's chest swelled with emotion, but deep down, she felt it, something watching from beyond the tree line. A whisper in the wind, cold and cruel. You cannot unite what is already broken. Her head snapped up, scanning the forest. For a heartbeat, she saw him, the Shadow King, standing in the mist, a figure of smoke and fire. His eyes burned crimson, his smile cold. Rylan followed her gaze, but saw nothing. What is it? She whispered, his here. The wind howled. The torches flickered. Then, as suddenly as he'd appeared, The Shadow King vanished, leaving behind only the echo of his laughter and the lingering taste of fear. That night, the world changed again. A red moon rose over the forest, bathing everything in an eerie glow. The wolves grew restless, pacing and whining. The elders whispered that it was a blood omen, the sign of the shadow's return. Lyra stood on the balcony, watching the crimson moon hang heavy in the sky. Her pendant pulsed faster now, matching the rhythm of her heart. Rylan joined her quietly. "His drawing power from the moon," he said grimly. "His corrupting it." Lyra's jaw tightened. "Then we take it back." He studied her for a long moment. "There's a way to do that. But it's dangerous." "I'm listening." Rylan hesitated. "The ritual of binding. It hasn't been done since the moon goddess walked among us. It links two souls together to share strength. It could stabilize your power, but it comes with a cost." "What kind of cost?" "If one dies," he said softly, "so does the other." The air thickened between them. Lyra looked into his eyes. "And you're offering yourself for that?" "I'd rather die linked to you than live in a world ruled by darkness." She shook her head. "No, Rylan. I won't let you do that." He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "You don't get to decide for me. This is my choice." Their eyes met, and in that moment, words were no longer needed. She could feel his heartbeat through the bond forming between them, steady, strong, unwavering. "I'll think about it," she whispered. "Don't take too long," he replied. "The moon bleeds faster every night." 3 days passed before Lyra made her decision. Each night, the red moon grew darker, and the shadows spread further across the land. Wolves went missing near the borders, and whispers of strange creatures lurking in the woods filled the pack with unease. She found Rylan by the river, sharpening his blade. His expression was distant, eyes reflecting the blood-red light above. "Rylan," she said softly. He turned, and the moment their eyes met, he knew. "You've decided." Lyra nodded. "If I'm to face the Shadow King, I can't do it alone. We do this together." He rose slowly, searching her face. "You're certain?" "Yes." She swallowed. "If we're bound, then we fight as one. Live or die, it will be together." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Then we begin at moonrise." That night, the pack gathered in the sacred grove, the same clearing where Lyra had faced her trial. The moon hung above, blood-red and burning. The altar glowed faintly with runes of silver and black. Rylan stood across from her, his shirt discarded, revealing the intricate markings of his alpha line carved across his skin. Lyra stepped forward, her pendant glowing softly against her chest. The air shimmered as she spoke the ancient words Selene had once taught her in dreams. "By moon and shadow, by bond and blood. Let our hearts beat as one. Let the darkness bow, the light endure. Let no death divide what fate has sown." Rylan repeated the vow, his voice deep and certain. As the final word left their lips, the light from the moon poured down upon them, twisting into a spiral that encircled their bodies. The shadows rose, not in menace, but in reverence, swirling like black smoke infused with silver. Pain seared through Lyra's chest as a mark burned onto her skin, a crescent entwined with a wolf's eye. Rylan gritted his teeth as the same mark appeared over his heart. When the light faded, they were both breathing hard, their eyes glowing faintly gold and silver. "It's done," Rylan said hoarsely. Lyra could feel it, the bond pulsing between them. Every heartbeat, every breath, was shared. Their souls intertwined like threads of light and shadow. She looked at him, a strange calm settling over her. "I can feel your heart." He smiled faintly. "Then you'll know it beats for you." Before she could speak, a sudden roar shook the forest. The ground split, and dark mist erupted from beneath the earth. Wolves howled in terror as the trees twisted and blackened. Rylan grabbed his sword. "He's here." From the darkness, figures emerged, shadows shaped like wolves, their eyes blazing red. The first wave lunged, and the battle began. The Nightshade warriors fought fiercely, their silver blades cutting through the misty forms. Lyra stood at the center, power thrumming through her veins. The bond magnified her strength. Every time she faltered, Rylan's energy surged into her. She raised her hands, summoning the shadows under her control. By the moon's light, submit. The creatures froze, howling as light and darkness collided. But from the depths of the mist, a voice thundered. You cannot bind what was born free of the moon. The ground trembled as the Shadow King appeared, towering and terrible. His form shifted constantly, half-wolf, half-man, eyes blazing like dying stars. Rylan stepped forward, blade ready. You'll fall tonight. The king laughed, a sound that made the air bleed. You've bound yourselves, foolish children. Now your weakness is my weapon. He thrust his hand forward, and a beam of black fire shot toward them. Lyra tried to deflect it, but the force slammed into her chest. Pain exploded through her body and through Rylan's. They both screamed, collapsing together. The king smiled coldly. One dies, both die. How poetic. Lyra's vision blurred. She could feel Rylan's heartbeat faltering through the bond. Desperation surged in her chest. No. Not him. She reached inward, calling to the moonstone. Please, help me. The pendant flared, pure and blinding. The moon above turned silver again for a moment, the blood-red haze breaking. Lyra rose slowly, eyes glowing with both light and shadow. Her voice echoed with divine power. You forget something, Shadow King. The bond doesn't make us weak, it makes us infinite. Light erupted from her body, sweeping across the battlefield. The shadow creatures screamed as they disintegrated, burned away by the combined power of their souls. The king roared, shielding himself, his form flickering. This is not the end, he growled. The light will fail. And when it does, I will rise again. Then he vanished into a cloud of smoke, leaving silence in his wake. Lyra collapsed, her strength spent. Rylan caught her, holding her close. You did it, he whispered. She smiled weakly. No, we did. The wolves gathered around them, howling in victory and sorrow. The blood moon faded, replaced by pale silver light once more. But deep beneath the earth, in places where even light couldn't reach, the Shadow King's laughter lingered. Because he knew this was only the first war. The night after the battle was one the Nightshade Pack would never forget. The earth still steamed where the shadows had burned away. The trees stood scorched and black, the air thick with the metallic scent of blood and smoke. Wolves tended to the wounded while others buried the dead beneath the pale light of a recovering moon. Lyra sat near the great oak, her body trembling from exhaustion. The bond pulsed faintly between her and Rylan, steady but fragile. Each breath she took was echoed in his chest, each ache, each whisper of pain, belonged to both of them now. She stared down at her hands, still faintly glowing. The moonstone hung from her neck, cracked in the center but alive. It had saved them, but it had also taken something. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard faint echoes of the Shadow King's laughter, like a splinter buried deep in her soul. Rylan approached quietly, his shirt torn and bloodstained. His eyes were tired, but when he looked at her, there was only calm. You should be resting, he said softly. She shook her head. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see him. I feel him. He sat beside her, the warmth of him grounding her shaking hands. That's the bond reacting. The darkness touched you, but it didn't claim you. Her voice was barely a whisper. Are you sure? Rylan turned her chin gently so she would face him. I'm sure. If it had, you wouldn't still be fighting. For a while, neither spoke. The wind sighed through the ruins of the grove. Somewhere, an injured wolf whimpered softly. Finally, Lyra asked, how many did we lose? Rylan's jaw tightened. 12. Most of them died protecting the others. Her throat constricted. Because of me. Because of us, Rylan corrected firmly. They didn't die in vain, Lyra. They died to protect the light you carry. Lyra looked away, her eyes wet. Sometimes it doesn't feel like light. Sometimes it feels like something else. He frowned. Something else? The shadows, she whispered. When I used my power, they didn't just obey, they rejoiced. Like they'd been waiting for me to let go completely. Rylan reached out and placed his hand over hers. You didn't let go. You commanded them. And that's what makes you different from him. She wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe she was still herself. But deep inside, something was shifting, a faint hum of power that wasn't entirely hers. "Rylan," she said quietly, "what if the Shadow King didn't die? What if he's still inside me?" He held her gaze steadily. "Then we'll face him again. Together." The word together steadied her heart. She nodded, leaning against him, listening to the shared rhythm of their breathing. Above them, the moon shone brighter, almost as if it was listening. The following days passed in uneasy quiet. The Nightshade pack rebuilt their defenses, gathering what little strength they had left. Rylan held council with the elders, while Lyra withdrew into meditation, trying to understand the strange whispers that had begun to haunt her dreams. She sat by the river one afternoon, eyes closed, palms resting on her knees. The water shimmered faintly, reflecting her silver-lit aura. "You think you can contain what you were born to become?" Her eyes snapped open. The voice was inside her mind, cold and cruel, the Shadow King. "Leave me," she hissed under her breath. "You carry my mark now," he whispered. "You cannot kill what shares your soul." Her hands clenched, the shadows around her rippling like disturbed water. "I'm nothing like you. Aren't you? You draw your power from darkness, same as I. Every time you use it, you feed me. Every time you fight, I grow." "Lies," she shouted, and the water exploded upward, waves crashing against the rocks. Rylan appeared at once, sword in hand. "Lyra." She turned to him, chest heaving. Her eyes glowed faintly red for a heartbeat, then silver again. "What happened?" he demanded. She shook her head, her voice trembling. "He spoke to me." Rylan's expression hardened. "The Shadow King?" She nodded. "He said, he's inside me. That I'm feeding him." Rylan's grip tightened on his blade. "Then we'll find a way to separate you from him." Lyra's shoulders sagged. "And if we can't? Then I'll keep fighting until we do," he said simply. Something inside her broke at the quiet conviction in his voice. "Rylan." He reached out and pulled her into his arms. "You don't carry this alone, Lyra." "Not anymore." She closed her eyes and let herself rest against him, the bond between them steadying her heartbeat. But deep inside, she knew the Shadow King was telling the truth about one thing: his essence was within her now. And if she wasn't careful, it would destroy everything she loved. That night, Lyra dreamed again. She stood in a field of ash under a darkened moon. The world was silent, dead. From the horizon, a figure emerged, her reflection. But its eyes glowed crimson, its smile cruel. "You can't run from what you are," the dark version of her whispered. "You are shadow and light, two sides of the same blade. The moon chose you because she needs both." Lyra's voice trembled. "I'll never be you." Her reflection smiled wider. "You already are." Then it lunged forward, merging with her in a burst of black fire. She woke gasping, her body drenched in sweat. The moonstone burned against her chest, glowing brighter than ever. She clutched it, whispering, "Please, don't let me become him." The moonlight flickered once in answer, like a silent promise or a warning. By morning, the signs were undeniable. The moonlight that once bathed the forest in silver now flickered with hints of crimson. The shadows of the trees seemed alive, moving when no wind blew. Wolves howled restlessly, their instincts screaming of danger. Rylan ordered double patrols, but even he could feel it, the air was wrong. Too still. Too heavy. Lyra joined him at the edge of the forest, her eyes shadowed but determined. "It's spreading faster than we thought." He nodded grimly. "The corruption's moving north. If it reaches the Silverpine Mountains, the packs there won't survive." Lyra frowned. "Then we have to stop it before it spreads." Rylan hesitated. "We don't even know where it's coming from." She looked toward the horizon, her pendant pulsing faintly. "I do." Rylan followed her gaze. "Where?" "The old moon well," she said. "The place where the first bond was sealed. The Shadow King is trying to break it." Rylan's jaw tightened. "That's 2 days' ride through cursed land." "Then we leave now." He stared at her, studying the fierce light in her eyes. "You're barely healed, Lyra." She met his gaze evenly. "If I wait, it won't matter. You said it yourself, the darkness doesn't rest." "Neither can I." He sighed, then nodded. Then we move at dusk. The journey to the moon well was worse than either of them expected. The once lush forest was dying, trees brittle and blackened, rivers turned to sludge. The air smelled of rot and ash. Shadowmane led the way, his fur bristling, his low growls constant. The earth bleeds, his voice echoed faintly in Lyra's mind. Too much death. Too much hunger. Lyra's heart ached. Every step closer made her power stir, restless and volatile. The Shadow King's whispers grew louder, feeding off her fear. You can feel it, can't you? The pull. The darkness calls you home. Shut up, she hissed aloud. Rylan turned sharply. His speaking again. She nodded, pressing a hand to her chest. His close. I can feel him. By the time they reached the clearing, the moon had turned red again. The moon well stood in the center, a massive pool of black water, glowing faintly from below. The air hummed with ancient magic. This is it, Lyra said softly. The heart of the bond. But the water wasn't calm. It churned violently, as if something beneath it was trying to escape. The ground cracked, veins of red light spreading outward. Then, slowly, the Shadow King rose. He emerged from the water, towering and inhuman, his form shifting between man and wolf. His eyes burned like dying suns. Did you think light could kill shadow? He mocked. You only delayed what cannot die. Rylan stepped forward, blade ready. We'll end you here. The king laughed, the sound making the ground tremble. End me? Fool. I am the bond. I am what the moon hid inside you. Lyra's heart stopped. Inside me. He smiled cruelly. I was born when your ancestor defied the goddess. You are my vessel, child of shadow. My rebirth begins through you. Pain exploded through her chest. The mark over her heart flared red, and she screamed. Darkness poured from her body, coiling into the air like smoke. Rylan caught her as she collapsed. Lyra, fight him. She gasped, her eyes glowing crimson. I can't, his inside. The Shadow King's laughter filled the clearing. Do you see now, wolf? You bound yourself to her. When she falls, so will you. Rylan gritted his teeth, holding her trembling body. Then I'll fall fighting. He pressed his forehead to hers, whispering fiercely, you're stronger than him. You always were. Remember who you are. Lyra's eyes flickered red, then silver, then red again. The battle inside her was visible now, her aura torn between light and shadow. The moonstone pulsed against her skin, but cracks spread across it, glowing hotter with each heartbeat. Lyra, Rylan shouted. Focus on me. On us. Through the pain, she felt it, the bond. His heartbeat inside her chest. The love, the faith, the unbreakable thread tying them together. Her voice was hoarse, but fierce. You said the bond makes us infinite. Rylan's voice broke. It does. Then take all of me, she whispered, eyes turning pure silver. Light and shadow both. The moonstone shattered. A shockwave erupted from her body, blinding white and black light spiraling upward, swallowing the moon well and the creature within. The Shadow King roared, his form breaking apart piece by piece, devoured by the very darkness he had created. When the light faded, silence returned. The moon turned pale again, pure and whole. Lyra fell to her knees, her chest rising weakly. Rylan caught her, tears streaming down his face. You did it, he whispered. You ended him. She smiled faintly, eyes fluttering. No, we did. Her hand brushed his cheek, her voice barely a whisper. The bond, it's still there. Yes, he said, gripping her hand tightly. Always. But as he spoke, the last of the moonstone's light faded. The shadows sank into her skin, disappearing completely. The air grew still. The forest sighed. And far above, the moon shone brighter than ever, its light reborn, its balance restored. Yet in that perfect silence, a single whisper lingered, faint but certain. Every light casts a shadow. Dawn broke over a changed world. The first light of morning crept over the forest, washing away the night's blood-red hue. The air was still, heavy with the scent of burnt earth and renewal. For the first time in weeks, the moonlight did not flicker, it faded softly into day, gentle and calm. The Nightshade pack began to emerge from the ruins of the battle. Their fur was singed, their eyes dull with exhaustion, but they lived. The silence of loss mingled with the fragile relief of survival. At the heart of the clearing, Ryland sat cradling Lyra's body. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale as moonlight. Faint silver markings shimmered across her arms, spiraling into the crescent-shaped scar over her heart. The moonstone was gone, shattered completely. But where it once hung now rested a mark of its own, burned into her flesh, glowing faintly like living light. "She's alive," Rylan whispered, though it sounded more like a prayer than certainty. The healers approached cautiously, their faces drawn and anxious. One knelt, touching Lyra's wrist. "Her pulse is weak, Alpha. Whatever magic she used drained her beyond human limits. She's caught between worlds." Ryland's jaw tightened. "Then bring her back." The healer shook her head. "This isn't something medicine can heal." He looked down at Lyra's still form, fury and fear twisting in his chest. "She gave everything," he said softly. "I won't let that be her end." He brushed the hair from her face, his voice breaking. "Lyra, you promised. You said the bond made us infinite. So don't you dare leave me." For a long time, there was nothing but the sound of the wind moving through the dead trees. Then, her fingers twitched. Rylan froze. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing faintly glowing silver eyes. She blinked, confusion clouding her expression. "Rylan," he exhaled shakily, pressing his forehead to hers. "You came back." Her voice was weak but steady. "I promised, didn't I?" He smiled, though tears still clung to his lashes. "You did."